Hello and welcome to another episode of Ask the Trainer. And this is the first time I have the honor to start the show, which means I have the pleasure to introduce the team. And Simon just left, but in alphabetical order. This is Elly. I hope I look to the right side. This is Matt, and last but not least, Darren. And that was not in alphabetical order. Wow, the pictures are moved. Anyway, since this is the first time I start the show, I want to say thank you for the last 15 years, because everyone so far visiting this university or anyone else was very kind and respectful. And I think that's beyond professional. And I want to say big thank you, big shout out to everyone who works in this way. Thank you. 1 hour based on structural problems that we have with our presentation. We have to keep it short today, 45 minutes only, and that gives you a chance to grab a tea or coffee before Max starts his wonderful presentation about color grading. And if you missed, and I have to click here, if you missed one of our previous show, please go to YouTube, type in maybe Ask the Trainer, or go to Red Giant or whatever. And we have several YouTube channels, so you don't miss anything. If you missed a show, the recordings will be here. Newer training will be uploaded constantly. And the next thing is that you have to check the Maxon event page. And this time I want to point out, of course, to Ask the Trainer, you know that already, but also to the 3D motion and design show, which will be awesome next week on Wednesday. Paul Webb will start the show, John Lepore will be there, Angie Ferret will be there, Petro Ramos, Michael Rosen, and Matthias Otmola will moderate, of course, the show, which I think is always awesome when he does it. And this would be the starter page for that. Please check it out. And last but not least, you want to check maybe your knowledge, and you can do that for free in 1 hour test, and then you know where you are. Because the saying is, if you don't know where you are, you go nowhere. And this is a good starting point. And if you feel very good with that, you can get maybe also a certification later on, which is a longer process than the 1 hour here. And that leaves me now here to say we have also a PDF inside of the notes, which has the super secret code for the t-shirts. And please be aware, 1 t-shirt per person per order only, but you only have to pay for the shipping. I think I have said everything, but to keep it short, I want to give the screen now to Elly, because last Monday she had to keep it short with her hero shot, and I found that very sad. And so please follow her along with the exploration, what she has set up. And I hope she grabs now the screen and
I'm just grabbing it now. Right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cool. Right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Hey, everyone. How's it going? Okay, cool. So as some of you may know, throughout August, we've been running a demystifying post-production series, and it's been all on title design and animation. And I've been part of the first 2 weeks, so last Monday and the one kind of like just gone. And I ended up making the hero shot for the second session, which was this one here. And on Monday, I went through a bunch of different techniques, looking at how we can kind of deform and displace and sculpt text. And I kind of had to, as Dr. Sassy said, kind of speed through how I made this material. And so I thought I'd spend the first kind of like maybe 10 minutes of this session kind of running you guys through and building this material from scratch. And then, you know, gives you guys time to have questions on C4D, Redshift, whatever. You've got a few of us here who can answer those live for you. So let me just move this out of the way. Right, so here is kind of a really basic setup. I've got myself a Redshift camera, I've got a couple of different lights in here, and then I've just got a dome light with a HDRI image, and that is my scene. If we just kick off our render view, it's looking like not very interesting at the moment because we've only got our text in here, and this was the exact same setup for that hero shot. The only difference is the texture or the material that we're now going to make. So what we're going to do, we're going to come down to create, and we're going to create ourselves a standard Redshift material. Then we're just going to drop that onto our text here. If we kick this off, we're going to open up our Redshift material, and let me kind of just rearrange some things so we can see my render view as well as seeing my shader graph. There we go, we'll leave it like that. Cool. So the way I set up this texture was using just a bunch of different texture maps, all inside of a material blender, and I blended it all together, and it kind of just really looked like this nice kind of grungy texture. And so what we're going to do, we're going to start off by creating what's going to be our base texture, or our base kind of color. So I've got my Redshift Material node here. This is what we're going to start off with. And the only changes I'm going to make to this, if we kind of pull this down, under our base properties, I'm going to change my BRDF to GGX, because it's going to be sort of like a metal material we're creating. And then my Fresnel type, I'm going to set to metalness. And this is then going to give me access to my reflection metalness input on my Redshift Material node. I used a couple of different textures. So for the base material, I used these two carbon fiber material kind of like texture maps. So we have our diffuse, and then we have our metalness. So what we're going to do, let me just kind of, oh, not that one. Let's just grab these two texture maps, and we're going to just drag and drop them into our shader graph. And what we need to do, we need to plug our carbon fiber diffuse texture into our Redshift material, and that's just going to go into our diffuse color. If I close that down, we can see this. And then our metalness is going to go into our base properties reflection and reflection metalness. So this is the kind of the base texture, or the base color that we want for our text material. And then from here, we can now start to build up and use a material blender and some other texture maps to add those kind of additional kind of scratches and marks that we had before we could then kind of use a Greeble map to create some displacement. So let me just minimize that. So the texture maps I ended up using were actually inside of the asset browser already. So if we just open up our asset browser and search like scratch, we have a whole bunch of like smudges and scratch maps already inside of our asset browser. So I ended up using this one here. So I'm just going to drag and drop that in, and it's going to say, do you want it to make a path? No. And then the other one I used was this kind of like finger scratches and smudges. I'm going to drag that in, say no again. And these are the two kind of texture maps we're going to use as blending masks in our material blender. So what do we need to get? We need to grab a material blender so we can blend some materials together, and also use these scratch maps as kind of a mask. So inside the material blender, we can layer a bunch of different colors or materials, as well as kind of defining a blend color. So because my carbon fiber is going to be my base color, all we have to do is grab this output color and plug it into the base color of my material blender. Then we're going to plug that into our surface. Let me just get rid of my asset browser. So as you can see, nothing's changed because we've just defined our base color. Now what we need to do, we need to choose a second material, and this is going to be the material of our scratches. And so for this, I kept it super simple, super quick. I only used one of the preset materials, and I went with platinum. So if we choose that, we can now plug this into our layer color 2. Then all we need to do is use this texture map as a mask for our blend color 2. So if we plug this in, blend color 2, we can see it's now working as a mask. The only trouble is it needs to be inverted. So if we grab ourselves a ramp, I'm going to drop that in here, and we can use the ramp to invert our black and white values. So if we just hit this invert button, and if we watch, it's going to basically just flip our black and white values over. So now we can see our scratches, which are taking up kind of the texture of this second Redshift material here, which is our platinum. We can also use the ramp to really kind of like dial in these black and white values. So, you know, if you find this is a little bit too much going on, you know, you can pull your blacks over, or if you want kind of a bit more going on, we can pull our whites over. Cool, now we basically just need to do this exact same setup with this second texture map. So I'm going to grab another Redshift material, drop that in there. And for this one, I think I used iron for this one. And I'm going to plug that in, and this is going to become my layer color 2. And all we have to do is the same thing in here, is drop our texture inside, oops, I missed, inside of our blend color 2. And again, as you can see, I'm a big fan of the ramp, especially when it comes to using these kind of like black and white or grayscale texture maps. And we can pull in these values just to bring some more of that texture map out. So already it's looking pretty cool, like it's looking super grungy in comparison to how it was looking before. One thing, if we come out of this camera and come in here, we can see our carbon fiber texture maps aren't really projecting properly on the side of our text. And there's a really quick fix for this, and it's just using the TriPlanar node. So if I just grab myself a TriPlanar, and I'm going to just use the two of them, plug that into our image X, and then back into here. And now we can see that's fixed that projection issue. So for me, I mean, you could do the same on the texture maps as well, but I kind of like the way that they look like they're stretching, because it was a happy accident basically, because it looks like it gives the impression of these kind of like drips and these marks coming down the side. But if you find you're not happy with that, or you need to fix the projection of these, just do the same trick with the TriPlanar. Cool, right, so the final bit is, if we have a quick look at this, we have this kind of displacement going on here, and I created this effect purely by using a Greeble Map. So we do have some inside the asset browser, but I actually had access to one already on my machine, which I preferred. So if I open this up, we're going to use this Greeble Map as some displacement on our text. So all we have to do is drag and drop this into our shader graph. And then we need one final node, and that is our displacement node. And so we want to plug our displacement map that we just dragged in into our text map of our displacement, and then displacement actually plugs into the output. So plug that in, and nothing's happened, because the final step in all of this is to then set up our Redshift tags on our text. And this is going to enable us to see our displacement that we've just set up. So this was the shader graph kind of that I ended up with. I might come back in and change the remapping of that, but we'll see what it looks like for now. So on my text, I'm just going to right click, go to Redshift tags and Redshift object. And inside of our Redshift object, we have the ability to switch on our displacement, as well as tessellation, which is like our subdivision. So I'm going to override my geometry. I'm going to enable my displacement. It's going to look kind of weird. And maybe just do a scale of like 10. And the only other thing we need to do is enable our tessellation and then switch off smooth subdivisions. And now if we kind of switch on our plane and just drop that same texture on there, we now have this really cool kind of layered, grungy texture using kind of just a bunch of different texture maps. And I think what I ended up doing was back in this texture, in my displacement, in my remapping, because I found it was very detailed. So I'm going to just kind of enlarge it a little bit and go like 0.5 and 0.5. And that should kick in. Cool, right, so yeah, that was pretty much how I created this this here, just with a bit of depth of field and a couple different kind of camera effects.
So tell me a little bit, when you start, do you have a feeling, or you are just exploring and say, wow, this is cool, and you narrow it down after a while?
Yeah, so I start off just kind of by like winging it, really. Just I had an idea that I was going to end up with sort of like some text, because the whole idea was about like, you know, titles and titles design. And the week was specifically about kind of displacement and looking at Redshift materials. So I thought, okay, I'll just create this. I create some text, and then I just started messing around really inside of the shader graph, and just sort of ended up like layering things on top of each other, and then kind of perfecting some of the scales. And yeah, I was quite happy with how it looked. I thought it looked kind of
Yeah,
cool. And then yeah, then afterwards, then messed with all kind of like the lights and the camera effects, just to get that final little kind of tastiness.
it's often that little bit that brings it over the edge, and it becomes from something average to wonderful. Because I
Yeah.
feel there's an atmosphere in it. There's some story already in it. You see the reflection of something warmer coming, and I
Yeah, so that
mean,
was addition I did right at the end, and I really kind of, you'd be surprised. I feel like the lighting probably took me longer than creating the actual material, because I wanted to get
yeah,
just kind of those bits that were shining a little bit without kind of colorizing everything in this kind of like amber tone. So yeah, that took
yeah, you can. Sorry, yeah, you can really kill a shot with the wrong light, or just setting up light because you do it always in the same way, and instead of exploring and say, wow, wait a moment, I want to have it a little bit more here. Oh no, that goes in the wrong direction.
yeah.
No, well
Yeah, I
done.
think I could tweak forever. So having a deadline for this definitely helped.
Yeah, someone told me you are never finished. You just give up.
Yeah, just handed it over and just closed my eyes.
Yeah, because there's the next exploration and the next adventure to have. Wonderful.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
No, I'm happy that you had the time, because I felt so sad on Monday. I said, wow, that's such a waste of what you are doing. I have also followed all the questions here, and I have found nothing that we can present at the moment. There was one.
I actually see a good one from
Yeah. Oh,
Sharon about the displacement settings in the tag.
okay. That's a good follow-up. Sorry, I missed that.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
I
okay.
see it
It
now.
just came up. Sharon is asking, so there's a max and a displacement setting in the Redshift tag on the, on the text. And she was wondering, do you ever set the max setting a percentage of the regular setting, or set it to 10, or what? We've gotten a couple questions on just like, what's up with these settings, the displacement scale and maximum displacement. Like, what do you think, Elly?
Yeah, I guess so. For me, I just kind of tweak these until I'm happy. I think with the final one, I ended up with like 30 and 70. So this isn't like ideal, because the max displacement will actually, what Darren might have to correct me if I'm wrong here, it could cause some like clipping. So it's going to look at the maximum displacement, and it won't go beyond that, no matter what value you necessarily put here. Is that right? It would cause some like clipping from happening.
It's like, it's different every time. I've tried to find like one rule to apply every time, but it's always different because of the texture or the color space of the texture, or its projection, or the size of the model, and so on. But I believe that the maximum displacement value is actually in the scene units. So like here, it's, unless you've changed your scene units, Elly, it's like 1 centimeter.
Okay, yeah, no, I haven't.
If I understand and remember correctly. But the displacement
Let me up this so we can
scale,
see.
I think, is a multiplier. But there's also the displacement scale in the node itself, and they're don't know, I did some experimentation. They could sort of be interchanged. Yeah, that scale value. So yeah, they can be interchanged. I mean, it's like there's a couple settings here that, like you, Elly, what I always end up doing is just fiddling with them until I get the result I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's literally what I do. Just tweak the numbers until I find something that I'm totally happy with.
But I do know if I want a really small displacement, that the max scale is probably going to be less than 1 centimeter for those really, really fine scratches. You know what I mean? Yeah, but yeah, it's a good question.
We've got a quick question there, Elly, that I think you'd be able to show. What do you do if you want to have the same material for the entire text, but different textures for the caps?
Using selections. So let me move this out of the way. So inside of the text object, we have the ability of choosing these polygon selections, and you don't even need to worry about kind of like ticking them. You can just use the code inside the selection. So for example, let me just switch the plane off just so it doesn't get in the way. So on this, so I've got my material on here. Let's say I only wanted it on like the shell. I could just type in the letter S, and then it's only going to be on the shell. And then I could then add like another texture and then put like C1, for example, is the code for the front cap. And you can do the same on, if I had a bevel, which I don't, you could then texture the bevel as well. So yeah, polygon selections.
Cool, thank you for that. That was a nice quick report.
Can you hear me? I had to change the microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one more thing to add to the caps and thingy. Yes. I have to click this one here. No. How do I get my screen?
Oh, hang on. I can chuck it over to you.
Okay.
Here you go.
Thank you.
No worries. There you go. Just throwing it over.
Okay. So click this out. What I need to do here is just cleaning. And can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So what we normally have here is some text, and we have some subdivisions. For that to be visible, I have to switch this here to this. And you can see these little guys here. And we want to have normally on the caps, of course, maybe something regular or a little bit smaller. And what we need as well is in the object, maybe subdivided so it looks nicer. And this is now very trashy, but I hope it brings home the point. When I press now the C key, I get all of this here. Maybe I use the unfold all. And I want to have, of course, one object here just for this. Here we have now all these things that Elly and Darren have just discussed. I get rid of them because they store all the information. What I want to have, when I want to have a different solution, I go here now to store selection, which isn't working because the text is not selected, and store selection, and then I can go here to fields, check fields on, check the freeze for a moment off, and I can go to linear fields, for example. In this case, I want to have it in this direction and maybe a little bit smaller here. Oops, that is not how I want to have it. This one here. And in object mode, I can tweak this. And now I have here the option just to define exactly where I want to have my materials. So when I take now one material here and another one in a different color, maybe something darker just for the short time we have today, and I track that here into this, and I guess no. So now everything is fine, and I can adjust now exactly where my material is in terms of the polygons. If I move this here, then I get this effect, and I can go beyond the C1, C2, R1, R2, or S, and all the other ones very quickly into the game. And I can have as many of these selections here. And when I'm fine with this, I can just say, okay, freeze this for me, or I can go just completely out, get rid of this, and I'm stuck here with this selection here. So I can really fine tune where my materials are. If I keep the selection, I can go also here too, for example, in a displacer, put this underneath, go to tags, to rigging. Now it jumps here a little bit, sorry about that. Restriction, drag my selection inside of this, and then I can go to, let's say, color, just like that, and I can only affect areas that are selected by this. It should work normally with the selection. Okay, but you get the idea with the selection and the materials. It's very fast and easy to change things around. Does it make sense? The displacers should work differently, but
Yeah.
I think it's a nice way to have along the path also variations that I can set up very quickly, and I thought it's a good addition to all these presets up that we have. Okay. Any other questions today?
You know, actually, Dr. Sassy, it looks like you're almost set up to answer a question that I'm trying to understand. It's from Dean. He's asking if there's a way to use an effector to fade in the opacity of type along the sides of a fall off and not all of the letters at once. He has not had the same issue with the non-text MoGraph objects like cloners.
There are certainly several ways, and it's always a question, what do you really want? And I could think to just go inside of the point mode, go to selection, go to vertex map, and set a vertex map to this. Inside the vertex map, I can use also fields as shown before. I can just drag this in, and I should get a nice gradient in this direction, or maybe let me change it here to X again. Go to that. And so I can, when I do this right, have this effect here. And
so, Dean, is that what you're going for? So let us know in the chat. Sorry, Dr. Sassy, I totally interrupted.
No, it's fine. And Sassy is fine. Vertex map, and you drag this in. And you could use this channel here, for example. I copy this so we can use it everywhere. Paste it. And this should normally give an alpha channel here, and you can fade it in or out. But be always aware, it sometimes looks very ugly when you have these alpha channels working on this. Let me get rid of the black one, because in the moment you render, you can look maybe inside of the text, and that's maybe not what you want. So maybe a Boolean operation is sometimes nicer, where you have really then geometry instead of these kind of effects. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And that's like a great illustration. I want to point out that in the MoText object, there are, this is sort of different, speaking to Dean's comment and question, which was, well, how do we do this in a MoText object? Just make sure that your effector that is using that linear fall off, make sure that that effector is being applied to the correct like element of the MoText, the lines, the letters, the words, or all of it.
Yeah. Okay. Switching between things, and I don't know what you can see here at the moment. So
text.
I have to find the questions again.
Yeah, I'm looking over them. Ooh, here's a one about, can you smooth MoGraph selections? I think you can. Let me share my screen here. I want to get some for you up and go to my startup layout.
Smooth. That sounds more like MoGraph weight.
Yeah, but we can use fields with those, right? So, and there is that actually the modifier, right? That field modifier.
Yeah, but selections are either selected or not. So you have always a hard decision. It's binary. And
Yeah.
with the weights, you have all options open.
Yeah, so
that answers.
That's a really good point, because something is selected or not selected, right? So
That's only a
really good point. Maybe Hannah, who's asking this question about smoothing MoGraph selections, maybe there's actually a different result she's going for. So chime in, Hannah, let us know what that result is that you're going for. Let's see.
Crickets.
I'm reading the questions right now, actually.
So there's a question to me.
Vertex
Can you
maps.
try that last setup, but with the material changes wearing versus? Yes, you just, I think I have deleted everything. Sorry about this.
Which question are you looking at?
I saw my name and that attracted me, of course, magically. So the question, and I have always to get this webinar stuff here out.
About using the last setup, but with material changes instead of opacity?
Yeah, that would be just that you have the most right-sided material with the alpha channel there, and then left-sided on that, and I have to check if I had a selection in it. No. So now we have two materials, and I change it so everyone can. Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
I have no. Okay. So you can see we have here two materials, and with the change, I hope I make clear which one it is. I don't know why I changed this here. Should be. Wow. Why is that not changing? Okay, let's try again. New material. Put this there. Everything is white. That's nice. Now it works. I have no idea what happens. Maybe there was a selection left. And here I go again to effects, to vertex map. Go inside of that after clicking, of course. And there we go. So now I have the vertex map with a very smooth transition between the materials. And when I go here with my field, I can move between these materials. I hope that is an answer to your question, Drake. If not, hit me on University, of course. There I have more time and I'm not dealing with the interface and sharing my screen or not. And I will give you maybe a more detailed answer, of course.
I'm also looking at, so you know what Hannah was saying about smoothing. She just said she wants to smooth the effector. So it might be actually just smoothing like the animation or what the effector is doing.
Yeah, I've just suggested a delay or decay clamp in the effector or something like that. So you're smoothing the effect that the effector is having on the clones rather than making a smoother selection.
Yeah, so add a decay in your fields menu, or even a delay effector to smooth.
Yeah,
blend.
Or...
Would probably fix that.
I saw that question about hair and adjusting the length with vertex map. I think that is doable. I'm trying to set that up. Let me repeat the question real quick. Let's see, can you use vertex maps to control the amount or density or length of hair on an object? So if it's if it's a option that's in the hair material, then yes. But like the number of guides or the number of hairs, that's in the hair object, and that's sort of like a fixed number. But let me share my screen here and show you what I'm thinking. Where is that? Sharing, show screen. Oh, you know what? I don't think I can. I think someone has to toss it to me.
Do you want me to throw it over? Hang on. There you go.
There we go. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Oops. All right. Let's. Oh my gosh. All of all of the GoToWebinar stuff always gets in my way. Okay. All right. So let me just drop some. I got a polygon sphere here. I'll go simulate hair objects, add hair. I'll hide this, and we'll create a vertex map here. I'm just going to go. Oh, let's close this little pop-up that you guys probably can't see. I'm going to do a set vertex. Yep, set vertex weight. We'll say 0%, and then in here, I'm going to say use fields, and I'll get a linear field in here and shorten its size or its length, like so. So I believe that's 0, and that's 100%. So let's go now with the hair, and I'm going to switch to my standard renderer here, and let's try interactive render region. Okay, cool. And the linear field is affecting the vertex map in here. We can see that just by moving it across, the colors changing, right? So now in the hair material, so let me just point out the issue here. This count is, the guides count is fixed, the hair count is fixed. Let's see, we could probably load density here. I think this uses a black and white map, but I have not tried using a vertex map. So let's try that just to show the density first. So I'm going to go effects and vertex map, and then in here drag and drop or apply that vertex map. And let's see, what is my density set to 8 levels? Let's just go down to 2 and bring this halfway through and force a refresh. Yeah, so I'm not seeing an effect there in the hair's density. Oh, you know what? Let's make sure that we're rendering with the renderer level of detail. And maybe interactive render region isn't ideal, so let's do a regular old viewport render. Yeah, I'm not seeing it there. So instead, I'm going to go to the hair material that's on here, and we'll look at length now. So here we have the length. I'll turn that on, go effects and vertex map. And then in that, apply my vertex map. And now I should get, there you go. So now you can see that linear field is using that vertex map to affect the length. So, you know, anywhere that you can load here. So like here we have another area for density. So I could alternatively do it there. I'll just copy this, turn off length, go to density, turn that on, and then paste that vertex map. And let's re-render. So there we have it affecting density. So I hope that that helps you. I'm gonna stop sharing. Did that make sense, you guys? Was that clear?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
And I was told by Simon, our chief senior instructor, CSI, At 8:40 we have to stop because Max has his color session and we can't interfere with each other, so we would stop each other's session. That's not nice. So I go, here he is. He heard his name, I know it.
I was going to say, you three are some of our top skilled presenters. I just here to say hi.
You don't want to do the outro, so I will do it.
No, don't let me interrupt you. I've been skulking in the background answering some of the questions. We had a couple of questions about, hey, when are you going to upload the last couple of Ask the Trainer sessions? And we've been reorganizing our training videos, and you see lots of webinar snippets up there. So apologies for that. The last session is up there already, and there's been a couple of requests for the Rocket Lasso session where Chris featured Ricochet, so we'll get that up today, as well as the recording for this one today within a couple of hours. So apologies for that, but we've got almost 100 new little webinar snippets for all sorts of short little bits of content up there too. So thanks for your patience.
Okay, so when I try to grab the screen, I don't get anything. Change presenter.
I can send it to you. Look, I'll send it to you.
Okay. I don't know why it doesn't work with me. Okay. Thank you very much. And first of all, thank you very much to Elly, to Darren, to Matt, to Simon, and whoever helped answering questions in the background. And I think with some hiccups on my side, the rest of the crew was fantastic. And yeah, so, and I want to do the outro very quickly so we don't steal time from Max. Please have a look on Friday to VFX and Chill with Hashi and Seth, of course. And in a few minutes, please take a look to this wonderful session. I think it will be awesome again. If you missed the first part, you will find it, of course, here somewhere. And yeah, check out the PDF and the 3D Motion Show next week, certification, and order your t-shirts. And I think I'm pretty much done, right? Do I miss something?
No, that's perfect. And as Sassy was saying, if you have some time, in 16 and a half minutes, Max starts the next of his 2-hour hands-on with Maxon for color grading sessions. And he's delving into adding drama and theatrics using lighting techniques for this particular session. So that's also free as well. So you'll see the link to that on the events page that Sassy just showed. But please do come along to that too, and we'll have the recording for that up more quickly than we did for the last 2 weeks or the 2 episodes of Ask the Trainer. Sorry about that.
Thanks.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay. So thanks everyone, and I think that wraps it up. Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Sassy.
Thank you all. See you on the next one.
And thanks to our wonderful audience. Bye.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.